After the death of Ghori, the Turkish conquests in India were in shambles. The entirety of landscape was divided between the leading Ghurid slaves, Yaldos, Kabacha and Aibak. Bengal and Lakhnauti was under the independent Khilji Maliks, and there was a constant pressure of the native Hindu Rajas and the Rajput Rajas who wanted to reconquer the territories they had lost. In this chaotic background, we place the first half of the 13th century, which saw establishment and consolidation of the first of the Sultanate dynasties, the Slave or the Mamluk dynasty. Hi guys, welcome to Itihaaskar. My name is Kriti, and in this video we will discuss the Qutbi and the Shamsi dynasties of the Mamluk kings, Aibak, Iltutmish and the age of Chalisa. Chronologically, the first Sultan is Qutbuddin Aibak, but usually he is not referred to as the establisher of Delhi Sultanate. Why? Because his reign was short. Not just that, there are multiple reasons. The most important one is his strong identity as a Ghurid slave. Aibak had been involved in the Indian landscape and Lahore ever since the first battle of the reign. He fought for almost a decade, but only in the capacity of working as a slave of Muhammad Ghori. Therefore, upon Ghori's death, he was seen as a remnant of the past, not a sovereign leader of his own. Aibak did try to remedy this. He received his letter of manumission and his chhatra in 1208 CE by the successor nephew of Ghori, but it was too little a time period to establish himself as a sovereign, as he died in 1210 playing Chaugan. However, he is not that unimportant of a king. The contemporary historian Siraj Jisjani remembers him fondly as Lakh Bakhsh, a generous giver and a gallant soldier. He also recruited a huge standing army, primarily of the foreign Turkish and Afghan soldiery, and succeeded in creating a new class of Qutbi slaves who were loyal to him. The main story of establishment of Delhi Sultanate begins with Shamsuddin Iltutmish, a slave and son-in-law of Aibak, who was a consensual candidate of the Turkish nobles as the next Sultan. It was he who shifted the capital of his empire from Lahore to Delhi, which later then became the political and administrative center of many empires to follow in Hindustan. As I mentioned earlier, the Turkish conquests in Indian subcontinent were divided into many parts. Ghazni was with Yaldos, Uch, Multan and Sindh were with Kabacha, and the areas of Delhi were with Iltutmish. Lahore was the region over which all three often fought, and Lakhnauti was under the Khilji Maliks who had taken over from the Senas. Let's deal with all of these areas one by one. Yaldos at Ghazni had considered himself as an overlord of sorts over all the Turkish conquered lands in India after the death of Aibak. Both he and Aibak had been in the service of Ghori and were his son-in-laws. Yaldos had even sent Iltutmish a letter of manumission, recognizing his suzerainty. But when he wanted to occupy Lahore, up to the foothills of Delhi, Iltutmish called him out, and he was defeated and killed in a battle. Now, Lahore and Delhi were under Iltutmish's control. There was also the Mongol menace at this time, where Changiz Khan was raiding places here and there, and Iltutmish didn't want to come in direct conflict with the Mongols. And so, he only moved to conquer Sindh from Kabacha after 1228 CE, the death of Changiz Khan, when the Mongols were quietened a little bit. So by the end of 1228, we see Iltutmish's dominions had spread all over Indus and most of Ganga. And by 1230, he had also campaigned against the Maliks of Lakhnauti and got Bengal under his control. However, Bengal was an area which was always a difficult charge and threw off Delhi's allegiance at the first sign of its weakness. Iltutmish successfully curbed some of the internal rebellions and captured Ranthambore, Jalore and Gwalior. He made Gwalior base for conducting raids into Bundelkhand and Malwa. Iltutmish had a relatively long reign, and he is considered one of the greatest rulers of India when it came to consolidating an empire. Apart from that, he also succeeded in establishing an absolute monarchy of the Turks in North India. Moreover, he received a formal manumission from the Abbasid Khalifa in 1229, becoming the first legal sovereign of the Indian Turks. He is also credited to introducing a purely Arabic currency of gold and silver. The silver tanka actually proved to be the precursor of the later rupee. Iltutmish had created an entirely new class of loyal slaves and military officers for himself, called the Shamsi Bandagan. At one point in time, they were headed by as many as 40 top-ranking officers of the state, which earned them the nickname the Chalisa or the Chihilgani. Even though Iltutmish had wanted to establish a hereditary rule after him, the principle of survival of fittest, which was very popular among the Muslim world, didn't allow that. Hence, even though the successors of Iltutmish were several of his children, the real power lay in the hands of the Chihilgani, which is why the age of 1236 to 1266 is often dubbed as the age of the Chalisa. There were as many as 5 sultans who sat on the throne of Delhi, but most famous of them all is Razia Sultan. She was fierce, bold, and quite popular among the masses of Delhi. Backed by popular support, she had the guts to challenge the Chalisa, and she tried to shuffle the important positions of authority with her own trusted people. The orthodox mullahs and the proud Chihilgani found it beneath their dignity to serve a woman, to be governed by her, especially one who didn't allow them any say in the functioning of the government. And so they started a rather nasty, rumor-laden campaign of character assassination against her, accusing her of sexual misconduct and calling her incapable as a leader because of her gender. For a more detailed analysis of this scandal of which she was victim, do check out my video on Razia, Al-Dunya and Yaqut from the iCard. This age of the Chalisa went on until 1266 when Balban, one amongst them, became the Sultan. In the next video, I'll discuss Balban's rise to power and his contributions to the slave dynasty and the Delhi Sultanate. That's it for today. Hi guys, hope today's video was simple and informative. If you liked what you saw, share it with your friends and family so that learning and reading history becomes more than just a textbook activity. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.